Howdy friendos, my name is Stuart, and welcome to the part of the channel where we take a look at pop culture characters and determine what alignment they are in Dungeons & Dragons based off the parameters that we established in our Shrek video. Now today we'll be doing something a little bit different. Today we'll be analyzing all of the Kung Fu masters from the Kung Fu Panda trilogy of film. However, before we get into this video, I would like to give everyone a huge thank you for checking out the video. As many of you are aware, I have been going through a huge depression slump, and it knocked me out of commission for a considerable amount of time. I know I promised that I would be examining a lot of different characters, and I do intend to get to them, but in order to get out of the slump, I had to examine a bunch of characters that I felt I just needed to get through. I gotta say, as I'm writing the script, it feels pretty great to be back. So, I thank everyone immensely for giving me the opportunity to sort myself out. I am feeling significantly better. So, as you can see by the title and thumbnail, that I have promised a significant number of characters this time, and I think this is a direction that I want to take this series from this point forward. I'll still be focusing closely on one character in particular, but as the CinemaSin portion of the video progresses, I will also be dropping in other characters and their alignment as well. Specifically, all the ones that particularly matter to the narrative. This is an experiment, so I definitely do want to hear what you guys have to say in the comments down below. Now, with all those health warnings out of the way, let's finally get into our characters. We'll be looking at the Kung Fu Panda movie trilogy almost exclusively. I am aware that several of the holiday specials and the one-shot backstory episodes are in fact all canon, but I won't be taking them into consideration unless they are directly important to the character as they progress. For example, you'll be seeing these through characters like the Furious Five rather than Poe himself. So during the Ding Ding portion of the video, we will only be covering the movie trilogy and not anything else, and especially not that god-awful TV series. But we start our journey in the Valley of Peace in an anthropomorphic fantasy China, where we are introduced to our titular panda, who's not quite yet kung fu fighting. Poe dreams of becoming a kung fu master and is an extreme fanboy of all things kung fu. He collects action figures and studies as much as he can about the history of kung fu and its greatest masters. He's actually considerably knowledgeable about all of the greatest practitioners in their world and has a particular interest in the Furious Five, a group of masters based on the 5 basic forms of kung fu, including monkey, viper, crane, mantis, and tiger, or tigress as she is known in this universe. However, Poe is simply the adoptive son of a blue-collar working goose named Mr. Ping. He is wild, sporadic, and has no discipline, and while he is well-meaning, he is no hero. And that's pretty much it. With that, we will start our protagonist at a very solid chaotic neutral, but that is certainly not where he ends up at the end of the series. And like I said earlier, I will be examining and doing all the other important characters in these movies. The list of characters that we'll be covering in the random portions of the Ding Ding parts of the video are the Furious Five, Master Shifu and Oogway, the 3 antagonists and their henchmen, if any, both of Poe's dads, and a few side characters that I find interesting. I will not be doing any of the other pandas because frankly most of them are one-note jokes or the worst parts of their movie. And with that, let's go. But before we go, this video is brought to you by our sponsors, Raid Shadow Legends. You've probably heard of Raid Shadow Legends as a high fantasy world with all the typical fantasy races like elves, dwarves, orcs, and the like, and if you want to play as a martial artist furries, you could always go with the Skinwalkers. Check this guy out. He's called the Rain Beast, and he's a totally boss off-tank healer type. The big draw of this game is being able to customize a team with massive pool of heroes. One of the reasons I'm so excited about this month in particular is that Raid is doing a special month-long event. All you gotta do is download the game with my link and get through the tutorial, and I'll have a special thank you for it in the final video this month. For real, you'll get a shout out and some extra special rewards to the top 10 players who played the most with a new account using the referral link. Raid just released the Artifact Forge, where you can save time and craft artifacts directly, as well as a whole new advanced quest system with amazing rewards. And that's not all, they also brought out some amazing new champions, and they've developed amazing looking Doom Tower as we speak. If you like fun, deep, tactical RPGs, head into the description below and download the game using my referral link. Doing this will get you some of the biggest rewards yet. 10 mystery shards, 50 gems, 100,000 silver pieces, and ya girl Hex Weaver! All these rewards can be yours using the link in the description.
What were you dreaming about? Noodles?
Poe lies to his father in order to hide the embarrassment and shame of dreaming about Kung Fu, something his dad clearly isn't interested in him pursuing. Chaotic neutral.
Could also sell the bean buns. They're about to go bad.
I realize this might cause some arguments in the comments, but Poe, in this moment, tries to drop everything to see the announcement of the Dragon Warrior. However, when questioned by his dad, he backs down and suggests selling expired food as well in order to protect Ping's feelings. In this moment, neutral good. But then he quickly drops this, realizing he can't cart the cart up the hill. He then straps explosives to his chair, which rockets him into the fray. If that isn't an action carried out by a player character, I don't know what is. Chaotic neutral.
Someone broke that, but I'm gonna fix it. I'll
Played for laughs, yes, but he did just immediately lie to the guy's face. Chaotic neutral.
A little harder. How's that?
Poe is put on the spot heavily and does what he can in order to save face in front of his heroes. He has no experience and he knows it. This is an honest effort. Shifu pulled a real dick move trying to humiliate him. Neutral for Poe here, and if we were doing Shifu, lawful evil on his end.
How did I do? There is now a level 0.
I understand. You eat when you are upset.
Oh, big mood. Poe goes and eats his feelings. I get it, bro. I totally get it. Chaotic neutral.
What are you doing here?
Poe does his best to prepare himself for the day. He even comes at all of Shifu's training with immense love and optimism, ready to be the Dragon Warrior. Lawful neutral. So typically I have bonding moments to be neutral good if someone initiates it. However, in this regard, it's looking like Viper and Mantis, the two kindest of the 5, approach Poe and offer him some help. In this regard, Poe's acceptance of their goodwill is simply neutral, especially after he learns about Tai Lung. However, speaking of these two, in all 3 movies, Viper and Mantis are fairly consistent with very few changes. Viper has always been kind and soft-spoken. This is reflected in her backstory actually because she was a Viper born without fangs. She is literally and figuratively toothless. She is also very sweet and neutral good. Mantis, on the other hand, is fun and funny, and he does have a sense of humor, but he is also very loyal and committed warrior. In fact, he commits himself to all of his duties. In the second movie, he expressed genuine sadness that he couldn't find a nice girl to eat his head. Surprisingly, that's not a euphemism. Lawful neutral.
No, it is not your destiny to defeat Tai Lung. It is his. Where'd he go?
I love these cutaway gags. Anyway, Poe tries to run away from Shifu's training, thinking he's obviously no match for Tai Lung. Chaotic neutral.
Then why didn't you quit? You knew I was trying to get rid of you, yet you stayed.
I love that when the script gets flipped, so do their goals and motivations. Tai Lung is out of prison. Time for Shifu to do the lawful neutral duty of training the Dragon Warrior, and it's time for the Dragon Warrior to panic and run away, all chaotic neutral style.
don't tell Monkey.
Poe wrecks the food stores looking for a snack to calm himself. I love Shifu's realization as well. Chaotic neutral.
I'm hungry.
Good. When you have been trained, you may eat.
It's funny, while I was writing the script, I also got caught up in the montage and forgot to write down the time code. Sorry, X. Anyway, Poe spends an extended period of time on a training montage to learn Kung Fu, which is a form of discipline in mastering himself. Lawful neutral, twice.
I'm not hungry.
If you are like me and you have ever struggled with an eating disorder or any kind of addiction, Nat 20 scene. The writer of this movie just gets it. Poe learning Kung Fu masters his own appetite, and he fills the void in himself with self-fulfillment. God damn, I love this movie. Lawful neutral.
There is no secret ingredient.
Realizing the message Oogway was trying to teach, Poe risks his life to go back and save Shifu.
I have always been proud of you. From the first moment, I've been proud of you.
This is the culmination of Shifu's character arc, so this would be a good opportunity to talk about him here. I know he does some stuff in other movies, but this is the peak of his character. Shifu is a very well-crafted, flawed individual. He is the series' best example on how toxic pride can be. His pride and ambition pushed Tai Lung to this sort of self-entitled brat mentality. Tai Lung pulled the trigger and attacked the rest of the characters, yes, but it was Shifu's failure of parenting that groomed his behavior and his personality. However, Even then, when Oogway refused Tai Lung the Dragon Scroll, Shifu never stopped him. He never stopped being loyal to his master, even till the very end, or what he believed was going to be the very end. Lawful neutral at the beginning, however, his self-sacrifice play to pay for his mistakes and protect the rest of the valley, as well as his path to inner peace with training with Po and becoming a much more friendly person, I think shifts his final character to be lawful good.
I don't want your apology. I want my scroll!
Tai Lung, on the other hand, is Baby's first sympathetic character. He's actually very well constructed, and he has a very strong motivation of doing what he does. He is just what happens when pride and wrath overtake your better judgment. He has an extremely sympathetic backstory, and his personal connection to Shifu gives him an edge over most villains. He is also not a total monster. He wants what was promised to him, and he will kill to get it, yes, but it's not like he enjoys killing. He likes being badass, and he gets the most pleasure out of Kung Fu. Honestly, he's a pretty good foil for Po as well. His passions drive him just as much as the other characters. Honestly, if there exists an AU comic of Tai Lung redeeming himself at this point, I'd really like to read it. That being said though, he is very easily neutral evil, but if you wanted to argue chaotic evil, that's fair and I wouldn't argue with you.
It's okay, I didn't get it the first time either.
What?
There is no secret ingredient.
Despite the fact that Tai Lung spends the next few minutes trying to murder him, Po helps him figure out the Dragon Scroll riddle. Neutral good.
The whooshy finger?
You're bluffing! Shifu didn't teach you that.
Nope. I figured it out. Skadoosh.
Like others, I'm a little bothered that Po pretty much obliterated Tai Lung off the face of the earth, but let's face it, the dude was a mass murderer and probably didn't have any plans to stop. Dude had chance after chance at redemption. Plus, it's likely he didn't suffer. We learned in Kung Fu Panda 3 that the technique does this portal to the spirit world, which is weird, but it works. Neutral good.
Master.
Master.
Master? Master Shifu!
After gaining respect of the Five and the village, the first thing that Po then does is go to check on his master. Nat 20 end credits scene 2. Neutral good.
38 bean buns! Yes!
Po spends the last extended period of time working on his kung fu while still retaining his goofy personality. Neutral. Rescuing the musician village with the Five. Seems pretty lawful good to me. Po has a flashback triggered by the wolves tattoo. He stops his mission and gets demolished and then seemingly abandons the post altogether to talk to his dad. Chaotic neutral. Just how do you make a peacock intimidating? That's how! Nat 20 villain introduction. Also, the stewards, that's me, of the city are all lawful good for laying down their lives and protecting it, especially when Croc and Ox are in prison later refusing to protect the city in order to protect the city. Lawful good.
Go! Destroy this weapon and bring Lord Shen to justice!
The scene sets up the rest of the movie. Po accepts his quest to go and stop Shen. We then set up the adoptive family subplot and Po's identity issues. It's weird identifying Po's motivation to go on the quest to stop Shen, though. Obviously, he is interested in helping innocent people, but he's also really invested in saving Kung Fu, as the movie points out. I'm going to give this action a true neutral because of just exactly how many emotions Po is going through in this moment.
Oh, hi. Hey, son, you're back. Huh?
Po is still troubled over his dreams and has a small freakout on the little boat they're traveling on. This causes the Furious Five to wake up and go into bro mode. Chaotic neutral.
So that was stealth mode, huh?
Let's be honest, not one of my stronger modes.
Okay, can you really blame Po on this one? He said he was bad at stealth mode. He also completely drops the plan despite the necessity for stealth once he sees a villager being harassed. Chaotic good.
Signal.
Gaga, gigi!
You mean like Crane does?
Yeah. Excuse me, when have I ever made that noise?
Might as well get these two out of the way. Monkey and Crane has always been pretty chill and focused. They're true neutral, and that's mostly because there really isn't any time to give these guys an arc. Crane gets a few badass moments against characters like Kai in movie 3, but there isn't much to him. In Monkey's backstory, we actually see that he was once a prankster, so technically he was chaotic neutral at one point, but he's much more disciplined and in control now. Neutral on the both of them.
Master Rox, I'm not letting you stay in this cell. I'd like to see you get me out.
You will be rescued against your will. Chaotic good. Po pursues the wolf captain while minding himself and the innocents that are basically being used against him as weapons. Neutral good.
I've hit you twice. What are you gonna do now?
We surrender!
Po surrenders himself rather than fight the wolves. It's arguable that the five plus himself wouldn't be able to beat the wolf pack, but we don't actually know. At the moment, he speaks for everyone, including the five. So in this regard, I'm going to say chaotic neutral since this plan isn't really well thought out of, but if you wanted to say neutral or anything around that area, I wouldn't disagree, especially since Mantis was free from the cage the whole time.
The only reason you're still alive is that I find your stupidity mildly amusing.
Well, thank you. But I find your evilness extremely annoying.
Who do you think you are, Panda?
Who do you think I am, Peacock?
I really like this villain-hero dynamic. Throughout the movie, Shen is actually really nervous about Po and his prophesized destiny. Meanwhile, ironically, Po has no clue as to what's going on. Fantastic character subversion in this regard. Even though Shen is clearly threatening the lot of them with death, Po deals with it in his typical chaotic neutral fashion. Po freezes again at the sight of the sigil, allowing Shen to get away. I like how Shen also BS's his way through this too. Po is all like, "You were there," and Shen was like, yep, sure was," and then books it. Chaotic neutral.
My parents hated me. Do you understand? They wronged me. And I will make it right.
So, getting Shen's alignment out of the way, he's definitely chaotic evil, but I will say he is probably the best and most defined villain in the series. It bothers me that his backstory was cut a little bit. Now, I'm having a difficult time finding it, but it was revealed in a DreamWorks website somewhere that his parents often abused and neglected him for being albino, and that the soothsayer practically raised him. You can see that their relationship is complicated, especially in scenes like this. He speaks to her like a petulant child, yes, but he never harms her, no matter what she does to mess with him. He's also a character driven by fear, which tends to be a clear sign of abuse. You can also tell from the scenes that he is a little unhinged, as if there is some sort of mental disorder there. I understand why they cut his backstory, but it's clear that Shen just needs a hug and better guidance. His quiet acceptance of his death was his only way to find peace, but at least he can say that he carved his own path. The best world building and character writing was based around this guy, and Del Toro's writing really shines when it comes to him. Chaotic evil and Nat 20 villain.
You're staying here.
Wait! I have to go back.
Tigers tries to bench Po after realizing that he was emotionally compromised. Not only did he basically get into a fight with her and attack her emotionally, he then completely disregards her orders and ruins the mission for them later.
Like you could make me drink that.
The soothsayer is neutral good. Her predictions were divined in order to help Shen and his parents discover a new path for him. She also saves Po here after being released by Shen during my rant about him. Best scene in the series. Arguably the best DreamWorks sequence ever. And yes, I'm including all of the Prince of Egypt and the endgame of Shrek 2. Sorry, Schaeferless. Po finally got the answers he was looking for into his past and is completely aghast at the answers he finds. He accepts this and moves on from the sorrows of the past, achieving inner peace. Nat 20 scene, true neutral.
Shen! A panda stands between you and your destiny. What?
This joke was a little played out, even for the time, but it's still executed well. Anyway, Po rescues the Furious Five and has no plan after that. Still works out though, I guess. Chaotic good.
For flying at them! But sir, we'll kill our own! I said fire!
This dude was a Chad the entire movie. He kept up with Po despite the fact that he's, you know, the frickin' dragon warrior that beat Tai Lung. He also served Shen loyally up until the last second when Shen demanded that he fire on his own pack, and he refused. Can we get an F in chat for Wolf Boss, please? Lawful evil. Po achieves inner peace, which allows him to harness the flow of the universe, as explained by Shifu earlier in the movie. True neutral.
You should, Shen. You gotta let go of that stuff from the past, because it just doesn't matter.
Po gives Shen one last chance for him to give up and achieve his own inner peace. Shen refuses and does a villain last stand, which ends in him being the result of his own downfall. I'd like to think that he found peace with his own demise in that last second reflection there. Neutral good.
I'm your son.
Duh, neutral good. So, Po has actually improved his kung fu by a significant margin since the last movie. The exact time between movies is a little unclear, but he really hasn't done much else besides be a general defender of the valley and high-five bunnies. Even Shifu calls him out that he hasn't really improved on anything other than his physical body in the last few years. I'm actually going to say neutral.
Your training will be in the hands of the Dragon Warrior. What?
Po tries to be a teacher, but utterly fails at first because it's significantly harder than people realize. The pay rate for teachers in this country is completely unacceptable, first of all. And finally, while Common Core is a good idea in principle, it does not account for the needs of every student, nor the teachers. Thank you for coming to my... Wait, Oh. Po sucks at teaching and panics. This is true and typical for his character, chaotic neutral.
He said you're a loser.
One bad lesson and suddenly you lose all respect from everyone around you, even though despite literal years of excellent performance? So yeah, just like real life, I guess.
Kai has returned!
Who?
Okay, I used to work with Oogway.
Oh, man. Oogway really did Kai dirty. Yeah, he's chaotic evil. Easy. Dude is capturing others and turning them into zombies and trying to gather a ton of power from himself, but like, Oogway conquered half of China with this dude, and then after achieving his own inner peace, he just never mentioned him again. Dang. Also, Kai is the most boring villain. He's not bad per se. He did well in expanding a mythology, and he did his best with helping with Oogway's backstory. He's also very clearly the most powerful and threatening villain, but like, Tai Lung had way better stage presence, and no one is beating Shen, so sorry guys. Chaotic, evil, boring villain.
To teach you a lesson.
Instead of preparing for lessons, Po spends his time in a bath at home in a very clear cry for help for his dad. Chaotic neutral.
Anything else we should try in here, son?
Po and his dad wrecked the Jade Palace in their bonding. To be honest, I'm kind of glad this is brushed off so quickly, but nevertheless, chaotic neutral.
Perfect! Now you can see what being the Dragon Warrior's all about!
Po, instead of teaching, goes out to defend the valley. Now, normally this would be something akin to lawful neutral or neutral good even, but Po fanboys over the zombies and is totally distracted the entire time. Chaotic neutral.
A brother.
Oogway had a brother?
In arms. In arms, sorry. He says brother in arms.
Didn't you just unroll it all at once?
Oh, this is a real good time to get Oogway's alignment out of the way. I really like how it's implied that Oogway was once a powerful villain leading a massive army. We know this because Kai died with gruesome titles like Maker of Widows and Beast of Vengeance. If we run with this, we can start Oogway's alignment as chaotic evil or neutral evil. But clearly after 500 years of redemption and meditation, he is the true neutral goofy turtle we see him at the beginning of the series. If this movie did anything right, it's giving us some really awesome moments on these side characters that I never expected. True neutral.
You can do this?
Well, of course.
While Po is extremely interested in learning to be a panda, his primary motivation from coming back to the village is to stop Kai and to learn chi for defending others. Neutral good.
We're pandas. We don't do stairs.
I've waited my whole life to hear those words.
I'm genuinely surprised when CinemaSins did this movie, he didn't point out how amazingly strong the pulley must be to support two full-grown-ass pandas up this sheer cliff, and the massive counterweight also needed to bring them up.
My action figure.
Can I keep her?
No.
Po gives up his favorite action figure to the little panda girl. Duh, neutral good. Words cannot describe how much I immensely dislike this character. Now, she isn't offensive or anything like that. She just utterly halts the movie and is just a waste of time and isn't funny. In fact, all of the pandas except Lee are one-dimensional and kinda lame. Chaotic neutral on all of them just to get him out of the way, and nat one scene for this creature.
Good! Seriously afraid? Even Master Chicken's going in there, and he's a chicken.
Anyone want to put money down that this male chicken wasn't originally called Master Chicken by the staff? Also, I'm just gonna guess lawful good on all these masters. Croc is here at least, so yeah, lawful good.
Dad!
What is it?
I'm ready for my first day of panda training!
Po commits to the panda way of training, completely unaware that his time is being wasted. Lawful neutral.
But because of you, I left the valley unprotected! I left my friends unprotected!
I lost you once. I am not going to lose you again.
You just did.
Originally, I was going to ding this as neutral or chaotic evil, but upon rewatching, nah, true neutral. He wasn't unnecessarily cruel or vengeful. He just ended their relationship and walked away. True neutral. Also, on Lee, his lifestyle is similar to the one with the pandas. They're just lazy and impulsive and do whatever they want. Although, if you want to argue that they're true neutral, that's fine since they're so chill. But Lee here clearly lied to protect another individual. And that's been his whole motivating factor for this entire movie. So chaotic good in that regard, even though his everyday behavior might be more panda-like, making him true or even lawful neutral. Po tries to train and prep for Kai, as well as formulate his plan to use the Wuxi fingerhole to take on Kai. It's not his fault it doesn't work. Lawful good.
But I realize having you in Poe's life doesn't mean less for me. It means more for Po. Your son got mad at you. Welcome to parenthood. Sometimes we do the wrong things for the right reasons.
First of all, can we all agree that Mr. Ping is best dad? Like, consistently best dad? The dude raised a bottomless stomach panda from an early age on his own volition and raised him to be a good and down-to-earth person. At least as well as he could. Judging by how Poe's room looked at the beginning of the series, he even let him indulge in his hobbies and gave him spending money to do it, even though he didn't approve of it. He was always sympathetic and fretted over him like a mother goose. Is that the joke? Either way, it doesn't matter. Ping is best dad, neutral good. Tiger's time! Don't worry, I didn't forget about her. Tiger started the series as a jade and frustrated student who only wanted the approval of her seeming father figure. In her backstory, she was an obscenely strong but well-meaning orphan that accidentally destroyed everything in her path. After becoming a kung fu master, she did everything she could for approval. She wanted to be the dragon warrior for the same reason Tai Lung did, to make Shifu proud. However, unlike him, despite the fact her dreams were ruined, she kept it in check. She is lawful neutral at the beginning, but she still treated Po unfairly, poorly, and rudely. But throughout movies 2 and 3, she saw the error of her ways and doubled and tripled down, making sure to treat him with the respect and to redefine herself as a noble and a helpful warrior. She is now Poe's best friend and confidant, willing to help as many people as she can in need. Lawful good and great and subtle development for the best of the 5.
Turn you into me? I have to turn you into you!
Po realizes the essence of Kung Fu and does a training montage with the pandas in order to turn them into the best possible versions of themselves they can be in order to save everyone. Lawful good.
But I can take you there.
What's that?
Po!
Son! Skadoosh!
This moment genuinely caught me by surprise in theaters. Nat 20 self-sacrifice? Lawful good?
You want my chi so bad? Then take it!
Po gives his overwhelming chi to Kai, which obliterates him. In reality, he didn't actually deliver any sort of killing blow, so I'm going to say neutral, but if you wanted to change that to anything else, I don't think I'd argue with you.
I can't take that.
Just take it. I have a bigger one.
Also, can we talk about how good this scene is? I mean, it's really great how Oogway is just as silly and goofy as Po. Their interaction really does make it feel like this was planned since the beginning of the series. Their conversation leading up to this point pays off pretty much everything. I bet you never thought this was a Nat 20 scene.
Wait, I can go back?
Who knows? I've never tried.
Po returns back to the world of the living with Oogway's blessing and becomes a teacher, spreading his love of Kung Fu and self-improvement. True neutral. These movies, in my opinion, are not perfect, but I think they're one of the better examples on how to stage your themes, morals, and philosophy that you're trying to preach, as well as having a great time. People seem to misunderstand a lot of what this movie is trying to do. First off, okay, well, it's trying to sell movie tickets in China, but otherwise, it's trying to show the Eastern philosophies of Kung Fu. Kung Fu is about self-improvement and understanding your place in the world rather than being a big goddamn hero, like a lot of Western media tends to show. I've been watching a few video essays on the Kung Fu Panda series, and while a few of them understand and scratch the surface of the themes, almost all of them said Po was a hero because he was selfless. No, he's not selfless. In fact, other than just being an okay guy, Po really wasn't an altruistic goody two-shoes. Most of the time, Po acts on his passions and his own self-interest before anything else, which is why he ends up at true neutral at the end of this video. Po, as a character goes, is closer to Goku than, say, I don't know, what's a martial arts superhero? Daredevil, I guess? Each of these movies pulls him closer along the path of what Kung Fu is all about. Kung Fu Panda 1 has Po mastering his own body. He overcomes his seeming detriments and turns them into his greatest strengths. Tai Lung was a better Kung Fu master, no doubt about it. And until movie 3, I don't think Po could have even beaten any of the Furious 5 in a one-on-one fight. And this is a fantastic detail. Po didn't defeat Tai Lung because he suddenly became a master in what, maybe a month? Tai Lung defeated himself, and Po just used what was best about himself and turned his opponent's strength against him. This first step led him down the physical path of Kung Fu, the path of the body. The sequel, I'm just gonna say it, is a damn near perfect movie. God, about everything in it just works together and knocks it out of the park. It's my personal favorite movie after Jojo Rabbit, and one I can watch almost any time. In this movie, Po is on his way to becoming a master, and the lesson he must learn is inner peace. And that means he must accept himself as who he is and leaves the past behind him. He doesn't understand what this means at first, but as the movie progresses, he uncovers more things about where he came from, and he learns to let go of the baggage, and as Shifu says, harness the flow of the universe. It's at this moment where he actually becomes a master. His actual skill is irrelevant. He will always get better. But the mastery of self and his ability to process back his trauma, his mental state, his mind, as what the movie is really about. This movie has no right being this good, but it just nails it. Which is why a lot of people complain about the third one. And I had a problem with this movie too, and it seems to stem from the identity issues that were shown in the last movie. Seeing Lee have his vision about Po and then go search for him definitely confused a lot of the audience. It isn't as focused and it isn't as clean as Kung Fu Panda 2, especially since a lot of people walked away from this movie with the impression that pandas have some sort of, like, video game racial bonus to harness chi, and that isn't the case. They simply have spiritual knowledge that was lost to their own history. They don't just have the power to do it. And when Lee says,
"Of course, I'm a panda,"
he was totally bluffing. Anyway, the themes of this movie are a little harder to notice, and that's because there's a ton of elements at play. Basically, Po is now a Kung Fu master. He's doing feats almost equally as impressive as the five, and he understands concepts that not even they fully grasp. At the beginning of the movie, when he mentions the art of the dramatic entrance, the rest of the five are unimpressed. And while it's played off as a joke, Shifu comes out and confirms that he is indeed correct. Kung Fu and martial arts are a battle of the mind as much as a battle of the body. Sometimes the difference between winning a fight is simply a change in how you enter the situation, hence the dramatic entrance. So, Po is a master here and grasps concepts that the others don't because he is that passionate about Kung Fu. He is ready for the next phase of his Kung Fu journey, and that is making the world a better place. In Asian cultures, teachers are revered to a much higher degree than they are held in most Western countries. It is understood that it is an extremely difficult task to improve the next generation. Po is meant to teach others what he has learned throughout the years, and at first he is terrible at it, just as he was at Kung Fu and Inner Peace in the last two movies. And notice how his teachers just let him fail at first. They didn't just give him the answers. They taught him the basics, and it was up to him to figure out the rest. And as we established earlier, the strength of Kung Fu is mastery of yourself. First in body, then in the mind. Once you master both of these things and understand your best self, you can then master your own spirit and whole of self. It's a lot of complicated spiritual philosophies, but essentially speaking, before you teach others, you need to learn how to handle yourself. You need to accept yourself. People complain that the movies are retcons of the last ones or their lore contradicts because they'll say things like, why didn't Oogway tell Po about the pandas? In either their genocide or their chi powers. And that's because he understands that interfering in others' destinies and trying to shape them to your own purposes gets you.
One often meets his destiny on the road he takes to avoid it.
Po had to discover things on his own, and that's what makes these movies great. Po, at the end of these movies, doesn't teach people how to use magic powers. He teaches them what makes them the best versions of themselves, and that's Kung Fu. And that's what gets them to master their own chi and their own inner energies. Granted, this gets lost in a villain that is kinda muddled and shoehorned and a little confused, and the third movie is a bit more childish and, you know what, it's still excellent. There are so many movies out there that have awful trilogies and just can't stick the landing, but at the very least, this one understands where to take the story next. The fourth movie comes out next year, and I await it eagerly, and I appreciate the fact that it takes so long for each movie to come out, and I appreciate how this series takes its time and does everything it can to honor the best of Chinese culture. And with that, check out our other alignment videos, and I'll see you next time.